Today is June 19th, 2023. My name is Howard Gold. I am the president of the United States Global Initiative. We are a nonprofit 501c3 dedicated to advocating for greater U.S. engagement and leadership around the world. Glad you can join us. We welcome your participation. We know it's going to be slow going the first couple times out. I would encourage anyone who's new to the U.S. Global Initiative to check out our podcast, 15 Minutes in Defense of Democracies, available wherever podcasts are available, on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and Buzzsprout. Our link is in the information below the listing. Thank you once again for joining us. This program, this organization will not function without your participation, so I would encourage you to reach out to us via Twitter, US Global INIT, Instagram, US Global INIT, Facebook. Send us an email. Our information is below. And please reach out to us via chat. Very quickly about the US Global Initiative. We are focusing on 5 big things, big ideas. American fidelity to our founding ideals. We believe that the United States and the world is stronger when we have fidelity to those founding ideals of decency and civil rights and democratic and free institutions. We believe the United States and the world is safer and stronger when we re-engage in global diplomacy. We believe that the United States and the world is stronger when the NATO Alliance is stronger. And we'll go through these over time. We believe that the United States and the world is stronger when the U.S. military is stronger and in fighting form with updated weaponry. And we'll get into this over the upcoming months. Supply chain issues and a defense industrial base that is worthy of the largest economy and military on the planet. And we believe finally that the United States and the world is stronger when we tackle the alarming rise and expansionist nature of communist China. And we think the United States is only going to be successful in doing those things when it does it with our sister democracies. We cannot in any way, shape, or form do these alone. It's important to be with our allies, and it's important that we not retreat into this Fortress America first, ridiculous behavior that is captured U.S. The U.S. political imagination over the last number of years, as it did in the past. We've seen how that has worked, and we've seen that it's worked incredibly poorly. So just want to check our stream, make sure that we're doing okay. Real quickly on the issue of fidelity to our ideals, the United States really can't be much use to the global debate of democracies if we are not adhering to these values at home. And that means, and we're going to stay out of politics as best we can. We're a 501c3 nonprofit, so it's violative of our IRS designation. And more importantly, it's boring. It's tedious. It's not interesting. It's divisive. It doesn't advance any cause that I'm interested in discussing. And I know that people around the world, wherever you are, whether it's 7 o'clock at night, whether it's 7 o'clock in the morning, somewhere in between, you want to talk about foreign policy. You want to talk about things going on in the world, in your neighborhood, and politics is not going to do that. So really important. No politics, nonpartisan. So who's the audience? Who's the audience for these live streams? And I apologize, this is new to me. People who care about democracies in their countries, whether it's a functioning democracy, a struggling democracy, or perhaps not a democracy. People who have admiration and affection for America's role in the world, who see the stabilizing force, who see America's contribution to the global dynamics, mistakes notwithstanding. We are advocates. We are not neutrals. There are think tanks and there are organizations that can put out papers who do great work, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on Twitter, 501c3s who study the specific issues and come up with game plans that governments can and cannot bring into their policymaking structures. That's wonderful. And we're going to take their ideas when we agree with them. But we advocate for the United States. And we will always do that. But we are clear-eyed. We will tell the truth and admit to the best of our abilities where we have strayed from our best ideals, and we'll aspire to do better. So really quickly, going through these 5 principles that we've laid out, and you can read more about it at UnitedStatesGlobalInitiative.org. The horror of January 6th was a blight on the United States. Our light dimmed. That shining city on a hill that Reagan quoted during his presidency was dimmed on that day. That is not what we are about. So we need to do better. We need to reinforce the structures of democracy in our own country before we go around discussing the structures of democracy around the world. Justice in the United States, justice for all religions, all races, all creeds, all genders, etc. We need to continue to do better while we advocate for those issues around the world. Number 2 is re-engaging in global diplomacy. This opposite of go it alone approach. We need to do things together. We need to do it with our democratic partners around the world. Does that mean we do it to the exclusion of other countries? No, but we really should be focusing on countries that share our ideals or who aspire to share our ideals. The United States has no business dealing with some autocratic nations that we've had far too cozy relationships in the past. It's hurt our credibility around the world. It's hurt the people in those countries. And we haven't benefited from it, maybe in a mercantile manner, but certainly not in a moral or strategic realm. And the United States' strongest resource is not our military power, it's our network of alliances around the world. China has none. Zero. Zilch. Now they have partners, but they have customers. That's what they do. People say, Russia's a gas station. Well, they're a criminal, murderous gas station, but they're a gas station. China's just a store. They have customers. That's all they're interested in. So I would encourage you, please, if you're on, reach out to us or chat so we can get your, there are plenty of people on Twitter who are doing great work. We want to bring it down to the citizen level. So please reach out to us and we will welcome your comments and just as discussion points. So re-engaging in that global diplomacy, I think the United States has done a pretty good job over the last year and a half, re-engaging in international institutions, working with our democratic allies. The third issue is strengthening NATO. Look, Russia has made it very easy to strengthen NATO when they engage in a murderous invasion of Ukraine. Who would have thought, 2 years ago that Finland would be a member and Sweden would be justifiably on its way to becoming a member of the alliance. So we have to continue to shore up the democratic values and institutions within NATO, and that means calling out some of the anti-democratic behavior, specifically in Hungary and a lesser extent in Turkey. because you can't be a network of democracies, an alliance of democracies, if you're not a democracy and if you're acting in an autocratic manner. And I think we know specifically who is doing that, and we know the reasons why, and they're being guided. And certainly in Orban's case, from Moscow. So we're going to stand with Ukraine, and we're going to there are a lot of folks on YouTube, a lot of folks around the world who are doing remarkable stuff. I would encourage you to follow us on Twitter as we support the Ukrainian people against the Russian onslaught that they are dealing with, and they will win in the end, because that is the way it works in the end. When democracies are invaded, democracies will prevail. The United States won't turn its back. This administration won't turn its back. The United States won't turn its back. The American people won't turn its back on the people of Ukraine. The fourth issue is making sure that we strengthen the U.S. military. What this war in Ukraine has shown is that the defense industrial base, the ability to build ships, build aircraft, more importantly, do the things that aren't sexy, like ammunition, spare parts. Those things are very weak. Sometimes they're sole source supplied. We need to be doubling down, and the administration has done it, but it's going to take a couple of years to come to fruition. So these are going to be tenuous times as we deal with Russian aggression in Ukraine, as we deal with threats of Russian aggression throughout Europe, and then also the threats against our democratic friends in Taiwan from the Chinese Communist Party. So we need to invest wisely. It doesn't mean just throwing money at the Pentagon. It means smartly throwing money at the Pentagon and investing in our security. If we can supply our way out of a war, then that's what we should be doing. And we need to build up deterrence. And there's a window of vulnerability here, and we'll get into that over the next couple of months, where things are a little dicey. So, and then lastly, we need to focus, and I understand that Russia has taken up a lot of the oxygen, understandably so, with their war crimes in Ukraine. But Russia's a failing state. Russia's going to lose, not just because the Ukrainian people are proud and strong and powerful, and they're backed by every major democracy in Europe, including the United States and Canada. But the sun will set. The sun will set on Russia. The sun will set on Putin. China's a long-term threat. It's a peer competitor. It outpaces us in hypersonics, shipbuilding, number of ships. We have to get real, and we need to be speaking loudly. People don't know where Taiwan is on a map. They know it has something to do with China. And then a couple of weeks ago, we heard about the Philippine Coast Guard getting into scraps with the Chinese Navy. And then we see that a Chinese warship cut off a U.S., I think it was an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer just last week. You hear these bits and pieces, and they're saying, well, what does this have to do with us? Well, it has to do with us because we're the guarantors of peace and stability in the Pacific. So if you're in Australia, you care. If you're in New Zealand, you care. The Philippines, Taiwan, South Korea, Japan, you care. If you're in a Pacific island that's thinking about dancing with China, you're going to care, because China doesn't have your best interest at stake. They have their best interest at stake. The United States is an imperfect country because we are full of imperfect people, myself particularly. But the United States has supported, stability in East Asia and the Western Pacific for 70 years. And for 70 years, we've tried to do the right thing, and we've quite often got it wrong. And we don't need to push the reasons and the examples of how. So I think that's what we're going to do going forward. We're going to talk about these issues. We're going to talk about NATO. We're going to talk about U.S. ideals. We're going to talk about diplomacy, our military, and how to contain a rising China. I need to be part of that conversation. I welcome you to be part of that conversation. The more voices, the better. We want the citizenry of all countries around the world involved. The United States Global Initiative is committed to advocating for greater U.S. engagement and leadership around the world with our sister democracies. We need your help to do it. It's a joint effort. I welcome your feedback, and I look forward to seeing you soon in defense of democracy.